Dr. Faye, what is your moment of impact?
So, my moment of impact was when I was in college. I was part of a service fraternity called Alpha Phi Omega, and they had created this opportunity for us to go down to New Orleans to help Habitat for Humanity during Hurricane Katrina. And so I said, great, let's do it. Let's have fun and also help people at the same time. And it was a really, really great. It was a really, really great experience to get into missions. And when we went down there, we were basically taking all the foundations of the houses and cleaning them out so they could rebuild. And you're working 5 days a week, just going at it until sundown, trying to clean everything out. Your body's hurting. And we would go back to this abandoned school and sleep on the concrete floor. And so you imagine a bunch of college students coming down, trying to help. We just haven't had anything difficult like this happen before, right? Where you're helping people, but then you go home and you're like, wow, I'm not in my comfortable bed. And so we were complaining about the conditions. But there was this one person on this trip that really, really resonated with me. And he said, if you're coming down to help us, we have enough hands. But if you're coming here to help for the cause or for the mission, then you can walk with us. And that really, really kind of impacted me in such a big way because when I decided to go into optometry, mission trips really just was kind of where I wanted to go. I wanted to help people in such a, I guess, impactful way. I also wanted to help in a way where I could immediately make them see better.
So, Dr. Faye, I love that walk with me when he
Mhm.
said walk with me. And how did that hit you as a young person in college facing another night with a sore back on the concrete floor? Like, what came up for you?
Yeah, I mean, it just put things in perspective for you. We grow up in this, first world problems, right? Like
Right.
we're sitting here helping people, but then we're complaining about like, the comfort of it all. But it's not supposed to be comfortable. You're supposed to get, perspective and have a little bit more insight about, the point is to help whichever way it is, and getting out of our comfort zones is part of the process. And so it's for me it's been very addicting. And the mission trips are not easy, and everybody always says they want to do it, but you go on your first one and if it's your last one.
Yeah, yeah. So it's really amazing that Katrina was 20 years ago.
Hmm.
And I don't know if you've seen that new documentary, but it's really sad. Like a lot of the remediation hasn't been
Hmm.
done like 20 years later, like the devastation from that event. And so I really applaud you for going down there and trying to make a difference in your own way. I have my own experience with Habitat for Humanity. So when I was in business school, we organized a chapter to work with it. And I showed up the first day on site, and they gave me a chainsaw.
Oh.
And I'd only really ever used a regular hammer. And so they're like, okay, you just pull it like this. And what they didn't tell me was the chainsaw kicks back
Yes.
like a rifle. Like I don't regularly shoot rifles. I just did at summer camp for like a sport. But like I almost chopped my leg off with this thing. So like did you so you guys were mostly just trying to remove mud and all of the flooding stuff and
Oh yeah. I mean, so my tool of choice was the pickaxe. So
okay.
go and just, because you were really just getting rid of everything. You're
Yeah,
getting rid of walls, leaving the foundations. But the sad part was, and they talk about it, I think, in that documentary.
yeah,
We were in, I believe, the Ninth Ward. And when you go in front of the houses, they would actually write the number of people that they had found in the houses. And I remember just looking at the houses and hoping to not see anything above zero. I just didn't want to see anything because it was, it's just scary to know that someone had died in this house. The other thing too is that you would see just like these people's lives just get thrown away. I mean, you'd see picture frames, you'd see stuffed animals, people's shoes, and so when you're thinking about you're literally throwing this away for people to rebuild. These were people's lives, and so for me, it was helping a cause, but it was just very it's just very sad to be able to do that. And it's even sadder that they couldn't rebuild in the way that people had hoped they would. So
right. So let's transition to Dr. Faye. What would you say is the impact that you care about? How did this moment of impact inform you?
yeah, so I said, you know what, this was a great experience, and at that time I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I was sitting in one of these classes in college called Biology Colloquium, where you get a chance to see all kinds of careers. And one of them was this optometrist that showcased a mission trip that he had been on. And it was his way of saying, hey, not only can we give people glasses, not only can we determine people's health, but we can be so impactful immediately, right? Like these people that he had been on, he was in a mission trip to Honduras, and with a simple pair of glasses, he could just make their day, right? People could see almost immediately. And I said, that's it. That's what I want to do. And, I went to optometry school. Obviously, I got in. And every year I did a mission trip. So I did a mission that first year, my second year, my third year. Fourth year, I couldn't because we were on rotations. But I've tried to do one pretty much every year because I don't know, it just made sense to me. I love the experiences that I have every single time I go. They're all quite different, but there's something that just keeps me going, and I love that we can make such a big. I hate to keep saying impact, but it is. It's such a big impact for these people who don't have access to care, don't have access to glasses, and people that probably haven't had an eye exam like ever. And so it's been really really fulfilling for me.
Take us on one of your trips. So you and your husband, Shwin, just recently returned from a missions service
Hmm.
trip to
Yes.
Romania. Walk
Hmm.
us through what that's like.
Yeah. So typically this is organized by international group is called VOSH, so Volunteer Optometric Services for Humanity. There is a different organization in different states, internationally, and they typically will coordinate with either Lions Club, the local Rotary, or just a group in these countries. They will literally ship thousands of glasses. So in our last mission, we had over 5,000 pairs of glasses that we shipped to Romania, and you travel with them, so that's fun. You got to get big check-ins and whatnot. And so then you bring these glasses with you to these locations. So at the location, hopefully we'll have either school, or it's either a church, a convent, monastery, anything, just a place where you can just set up shop. And we have a little doctor's area where we're shining lights and using lenses in front of patients. We have another area where we have volunteers that will check vision, so they'll literally point to a eye chart saying E, F, G, all that stuff. We have a dispensary, so all the glasses are organized by prescription. So you've got your readers, which are gold in these countries.
Yeah.
Prescriptions that are close but not perfect, but it's better than nothing. And you just walk the patient kind of through. You go through and figure out their complaints, just like we do in typical eye exams. Is it blurry vision? Yes, most of the time. Sometimes they already know that they have cataracts. Sometimes there's pain associated, and you try your best just to triage as much as possible so you can see volume. So the patient just gets walked through, and the hope is that you're going to see as many people as possible, but also triaging for the worst cases. So patients with, diabetic retinopathy, we can hopefully refer them to a retinal specialist. Cataracts, we can hopefully refer them to a cataract surgeon. Glasses, if we can give anything that's helpful. I mean, if your prescription's off by a quarter, we're going to complain. But then
Yes.
in these countries, you're just something is better than nothing. So these prescriptions could be completely off, but it's giving them some type of clarity. And so, you just hope that that'll help them in some way.
That was a fantastic description, and I love the idea of someone who's never had glasses before getting them and having the world kind of open up for them. I just saw this video of someone that was colorblind but had never been given colorblind glasses, and then all of a sudden could see colors, and like a whole new dimension was added to the world. So I think what you do is so magical. But I just wanted to run through from your Instagram, like the scale of what you do. So on the trip to Romania, I think you said 1,600 patients were seen in 5 days, and that was organized with help from VOSH, the Volunteer Optometric Services to Humanity program. I had a little trouble there saying it. The Romanian Rotary Club, and a bunch of school volunteers.
Yeah.
And you've also gone to Oaxaca and Sint Maarten, a Caribbean island near St. Martin that people may be more familiar with. And you've also done mission trips in other places, Honduras, Guatemala, Mexico, Morocco. So this is a lifelong impact that you're making, and I'm so excited to have you on the show today because you're such a strong example of someone who, when they were very young, like in your early 20s, heard someone talk about blending together service trips with optometry, and it set you on your path. And think of the thousands and thousands of people that you have contributed your talents and expertise to. So it's really remarkable. We have a lot to cover, but I'd love you to just share like one anecdote of someone who captured your heart. They came into the clinic on one of these mission trips, and the care they got just was so transformative.
Yeah, I mean, I could make you cry with so many stories, but this actually happened on our last Romanian trip. We had a mother and 2 sons. They had come in, and you could tell one of the sons just, he just seemed like he was struggling. He wasn't really focusing, and the mother had said that he was premature. And one of our other doctors was struggling. I said, you know what, let's bring him over here. I want to try and dilating this patient just to see what we're missing. And sure enough, he was a -18 in both eyes.
Wow.
So to put things in perspective, right? Readers start at +1. This guy was 18 times worse in his vision. And I said, okay, let's go ahead and put a pair of lenses. So I had about a -15 or 16 in my trial lens kit, and I went ahead and put it right in front of his eyes, and you could see him slowly focus, and then he held my hand. I just couldn't. Oh gosh, like it gives me tingles just like getting those feelings. But and this child was only 5 years old, and so you can see just like immediately how like just amazing it is and incredible it is that this poor child has been walking around literally blind and could finally see for the first time. Now, what I know is through development, to be 5 years old and be a -18 he's only seeing, shapes, and, he's not seeing
Oh,
detail
wow.
in the way that we are, but he's still seeing it better than what he's currently doing. And so I was so excited. We were able to do a custom pair of glasses for him. His mom was so thankful. And, there's always a story in every single mission that I have that makes it worthwhile. Like there's so many people that need something, and it's simple as a pair of glasses. So, I could make you cry with everything I've experienced.
Yeah, I am really moved by that story, and I really appreciate you sharing it. And just to be so young and have no way of calibrating the
Hmm.
level of difficulty. All his loved ones didn't know how much he was struggling, and then he didn't know kind of why are things not clicking for me the way they are for everyone else. To like
Hmm.
have no idea that it was such a dramatic, wow, -18. That's
Hmm.
amazing.
Oh yeah.
Okay. So I guess one other question on the missions is I saw you talk about bringing lenses and light with you.
Hmm.
So I've been to your eye clinic, Wanderlust Eyecare in Northfield, Illinois, and you have all the things, and it's very professional. Like it's such an accurate, precise diagnosis and fantastic corrective
Hmm.
lenses. But what are you missing when you're in the field on these service trips? Like,
Yeah.
is it the equivalent of like field medics in war just having like a knife and some gauze, but not all the things? Like, just, what are you
Yes.
missing that's part of your normal toolkit here in the U.S.?
Yeah, so when you're on these trips, you are literally using a handheld light and loose lenses.
Okay.
And you're just going in and you're estimating as close as possible to what you think this patient should need. You're also in an open room. So these patients don't have privacy. You're like right next to the next doctor working on these patients, and they're just staring at a eye chart on the wall, and based off of their reflexes, you're just determining something. So we have something called a trial lens kit that has a bunch of lenses in there, and we can literally formulate like a almost like this fake pair of glasses.
Yeah.
And you just put the lenses into this little, trial lens frame, put it on the patient, and kind of confirm, is it better? Is it clearer? And we would do slowly, which is better, one or two, but you know that the optical is probably not going to have that prescription in stock. So you get as close as possible, and hopefully they have something there. We are able to do custom glasses, but we save that for the patients with more difficult prescriptions, rather than the patients that have a little bit of something. So I
Mm-hmm.
know it is very. Oh, I would say that we get close, but we're not as precise as we are here in America.
Right, but you're still changing lives through that work. So let's turn our gaze to sort of missions here at home. You do a lot of work at the VA hospital,
Hmm.
and I know you do work with some of Chicago's homeless. I
Hmm.
know you went to, is it called the Revive Center,
Hmm.
and helped people get eye care and glasses.
Hmm.
So, talk to us a little bit about the domestic situation in eye care, and what are you seeing in your service and volunteer work here?
It's interesting because it's quite similar. I think that we don't realize that going to third world countries, and getting access to care is also visible here too, right? If you're homeless and you don't have the finances to get care, you won't get care. And so that's why it's important to not just go overseas to, these, countries where it's very exotic. We went to Morocco and Romania, and, you could do stuff in Italy or in France, but, even in Chicago, we have people that need this care. And so, so the Revive Center, so that's also through Vash, Illinois, so that's with the Illinois division. They do one every year, and they have actually done these vision screenings through women's health centers, women's shelters, just wherever people can gather and kind of coordinate this type of care. It's quite similar. At the VA, we get all the access to everything. So if we need medical care, the veterans are very much well taken care of. But we also have to know that the veterans sometimes are homeless too. And so, we can take care of them outside of the VA, but, we need to be able to create these organizations and these screenings to be able to find them and help them.
Yeah. So what I love so much about your story and your journey is your commitment to service and to use your education and your skills and talents in service of others. And so you founded Wanderlust Eyecare, and would you say that that is the manifestation of this impact, this moment of impact you had back with your work at the site of Hurricane Katrina?
Oh yeah. I mean, it's Wanderlust Eyecare because it's the mission trips all encompassed. Wanderlust, your strong desire to travel, and then the eye care. And for me, what was important was to make sure that my business was not just about my vehicle for life. I wanted to use it to help the community and communities all around. Wanderlust also comes from the fact that a lot of our glasses are made all over the world, and
Yeah,
with our experiences with travel, we find that when we talk to our patients, we're more helpful. So it just kind of encompasses just everything that I do when I'm doing mission trips, when I'm helping my patients, they're optical. Like it's just an all-in-one thing that I just can't even describe unless you come in and experience it for yourself, which is kind of like travel, right? You have to go and travel and
exactly.
experience it. So
Exactly.
yeah.
Um, so, you're highly talented in treating ocular disease in primary eye care, but running a business involves like a whole nother skill set, a whole nother set of challenges. So,
Mhm.
we have a lot of founders and entrepreneurs listening to this podcast. Talk to us a little bit about when you made the decision, because you have worked in a lot of corporate settings, you have worked in a lot of private practice settings, you have an ongoing relationship with the VA hospital. But how did you decide to open your own eye clinic, Wanderlust Eye Care?
Yeah, so when I had done my residency in ocular disease, I thought I would stay in the hospital system. But it's really, really hard to find full-time positions sometimes. And, I had been part-time at the VA for forever. And, the hope was that they'd eventually make my position full-time. Well, as I was working at different locations, I just found I couldn't find a place that resonated with me, a place that fulfilled me, and that I actually wanted to work for somebody else. And so the good thing is, Shwin, my husband, was working full time, and then I had my income coming through the VA. And so I said, well, you know what? Why don't I just try opening up a practice? And I didn't realize how quickly it would happen. We had decided to do it while we were on our honeymoon.
Wow.
And within 2 months, I had gotten some consultants to kind of help talk to me about the whole process. And then within 2 months after that, we found our location. And then about 4 months later, we got the keys to our door. And 6 months later, we opened. So it was literally almost within a year that it had happened. But what I had learned in the whole process is that I had the skills and I just had to kind of just jump into it with still having a safety net. I think that's what people don't realize about business
Yeah.
is that you can't put all your eggs into one basket. You have to reduce all risks. But if you're super passionate about it, um, it's going to happen. You just have to be confident and just do it.
I'm so glad you're saying the words that you're saying, because my day job is coaching people, and everyone has this business idea that's a glimmer in their eye, but it's really putting that eye clinic together in 12 months. That's rapid fire fast, right? And the fact
Oh,
that
yeah.
you were able to de-risk it by having your multiple sources of income, not only your spouse's full-time income, but your income from your work with patients at the VA. So, but I love how you said it's the passion that pulls you through. It's the passion that pulls you through. And
Yeah.
that's really when I wanted to do a podcast about impact, because I think so often we want to drive this impact, but we talk ourselves out of it, or we think that it's going to be too hard. And so look at Dr. Faye's example, y'all. Here's somebody that's been values-driven, mission-driven, service-driven, and pulled it off, and is continuing to make a big difference domestically and internationally. So it's challenging to work and be married, I would think. So you guys are super cute together. Your husband is a fantastic resource. I really enjoy working with him whenever I come in. So how did you guys meet, and how did you guys decide to work together? And what advice do you have for other couples?
Yeah. So Shwin, so we'll talk about him first. So Shwin was, he had graduated with industrial engineering and had worked at a company for a little bit. And then he went to trading. And then he ended up working at Medline. He was operations manager in surgical gloves department. And so the hope was actually not for him to join the practice originally. I had had a manager prior to, and she was there for about a couple years. But then she had left us during COVID. We're still great friends, so it was all positive, happy stuff. Um, and Shwin was starting to get really overwhelmed and working a lot. And when we had lost our manager, we had to make a difficult decision because I was working at the practice by myself. He was working from home from my second exam room. And we were just, kind of just crazy. We were just going crazy,
Yeah. Yeah.
And we said, well, something's got to give. We have to make a decision. Do we want to hire someone to be our manager, or could he potentially give up his career to support my dream? And so we took about a month to kind of decide, and I kind of laid it out all for him. I said, like, you're going to sacrifice your career for me, and I want to make sure that that's okay with you. And he said, yep, we got it. Let's do it. And it wasn't sunshine and rainbows. Like, it's working with your husband is not easy. But I think what's been helpful is knowing where your duties align. So, for me, I try to stay on the doctor side and work on back of the house, administrative work. And then Shwin is more front of the house. He's the social person. He very much loves. I love talking to patients, but he loves talking to patients even more.
Yeah.
And I think that's where he supplements what I do. When we are doing both the same thing, it doesn't work.
Right. I love that answer, and it's a great analogy to other types of businesses, right? It's the very importance of role clarity is what you're talking about. And you're saying Shwin manages front of the house, you manage back of the house. We're actually examining the patients and working with them. And he's doing more of the eye care up front. This is true of most businesses. If you have overlap or lack of clarity in roles and responsibilities, it creates so much friction, and over time it becomes corrosive. So all you entrepreneurs out there that are working with founders and working with teams, Dr. Faye said it here, write it down, role clarity. Okay, role clarity and communications, and probably date night. So I can see that you come from a long line of smart, ambitious women, that your mother would come all the way over here and get a role as an ICU nurse is very impressive. And go home and successfully drag your father over. So, yeah, very, very fun female line there. So one of the things I've heard you talk about is the importance of developing a relationship with your healthcare provider. And what's really so dramatic and consistent is the way you develop a relationship with your patients. You seem like you have all the time in the world, even though it's not true. But you create that sense with the patient. You listen to the patient's concerns. So what advice do you have for other healthcare providers or people that are studying to become healthcare providers in this metrics-based system with kind of corporate healthcare in the U.S.? What little things can you do to try to create a connection with a patient, even though you're overburdened, overworked, and there's not really enough time?
Yeah, I mean, I strongly believe patients can't be good patients if, they don't understand what you as a doctor are communicating to them. I want to give an example of when I was working in the city. I had seen this woman for an eye exam. She had diabetes, and each and every year I saw her sugar levels were just not controlled. And so, I had plenty of time at that time and to just kind of talk to her and to say, well, what's going on? Tell me why it's a struggle to bring your sugar levels down. And she had told me that her daughter was going through a lot of mental health issues and had run away from home twice.
Oof.
And it was the first time that I had told myself, I'm like, you know what? Imagine how many doctors have been telling her to control her sugar levels, but we don't even get a chance to understand what they're actually going through as people, right? We cannot take care of our health if we don't know what's going on outside of that. And so instead of looking at the numbers, instead of just, triaging just simple symptoms, we get to help our patients in a more impactful way when we know just more about them as people.
Yeah.
I think doctors sometimes, have all this, I always say it's like a doctor's coat, we have this like wall where, we want to keep things very professional. And I think you can, but just knowing more about the patients and what they're going through, you're going to be able to help them in a much better way. And so with this one patient, we spoke, honestly. I had all the time in the world that day. I was with her for about an hour and a half, and we were just talking. We didn't even, we were done with eyes, but, we were just talking. And I had told her, I said, I understand what you're going through, but you can only help your daughter if you help yourself first. And, what if you're not around to take care of her? And so, I remember she ended up hugging me at at that exam. And I knew it really, really helped her because the next year I ended up seeing her and her daughter. So, yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
this episode's a tearjerker. So
Yeah.
everybody get your Kleenex ready. That's really beautiful. Wow,
Yeah. Yeah, and
I love that.
I have so many moments like this where, where we just don't connect with people anymore. And, people are struggling. People are going through a lot. And, the internet just showcases all the highlights, right? But we don't showcase the hardships. And I think we have to be more honest about what's going on with each other to be able to help one another and, grow as a community and not just with ourselves.
That's
So,
that's very profound. Be honest about the hardships and not
mhm,
just the things that are going well. Yeah.
mhm,
So let's reflect a little bit on the importance of service. So here we are in 2025. We have a hyper divided country.
mhm,
We have enough food to go around, but we have a distribution problem. We have a lot of conflict.
mhm,
And we have people that are, when they get free time, they're largely using it to scroll on their phones or look at social media. And we're being told everyone has now a 4-second attention span. It's an attention deficit economy. And so then that causes this social media to be more polarizing because you have to create more energy to get more lift from algorithms. So we're sort of in a doom spiral. And I'm so excited to talk to you about how you make impact through service, because you just get rid of all that. So how can people that maybe are not optometrists, but they like the idea of service and they share your wanderlust and they're curious about other cultures, what recommendations do you have for people about how to find maybe a service trip that's up their alley?
Yeah, I mean, looking at your local organizations, you can go, like, there's a lot of churches that do a lot of this stuff. For me, it's Vosh, local schools, just, we even have, I think it's like, the one where they pack meals for people out, in the country. I forget what they were called. I think Feed My Starving Children. There you go. I've done that one too, and that was really fun, and they make it really fun. I think just getting out of your comfort zone and doing something a little bit different than what you're used to. But the opportunities have to be presented, I think, now. I think that to go searching for it is a little bit more effort. And, when opportunities are presented a little bit easier, it's an easier decision for people to make. And so I actually try to ask some of our patients if they ever want to come with us. You don't have to be an optometrist to do this stuff. I mean, we could literally teach you how to point at letters and just, have the patients try to read it. If you speak a different language, you can be one of our interpreters. But also, if you want to be in our optical and just give people glasses, I feel like it's great because you get all the glory. The doctors are the ones, we're in the dark room, shining lights at their eyes, and they're like, ah. And then when they get their pair of glasses from Shwin, they're like, wow, thank you, Dr. Shwin.
Wow. Yeah. Okay. So you've opened my eyes, pun intended, ka-chink chink, to the possibility of me coming along. No, I did think that you had to have eye care expertise. So that's good to know. And also, everyone can donate their glasses, right? So,
Yes.
so if you no longer want to wear a pair of glasses, be sure to find a place to donate it. So I'll do like a mini commercial here for United Planet because I'm on the board of it, and it's fitting with what you're talking about, Dr. Faye, and I would be remiss not to mention it. So I sit on the board of this organization, which is called United Planet, and it was founded by Dave Santulli, and it's now run by Jill Tracy, and it's an amazing organization that is focused on uniting the world one relationship at a time, and it promotes service travel. And so it helps young people have actual travel to like 35 countries, or virtual travel, or virtual internships. So there's lots of different ways you can connect and do things. And it's focused on a very experiential curriculum. And if you do go in country, you can experience some of the things that Dr. Faye was talking about that make the travel so rewarding, because you actually stay with a family and you see how they cook and how they prepare things and what their customs are, and you can go on walks with them, and it really makes you understand the culture. So so unitedplanet.org. So you describe yourself as a foodie, and I can't let the episode end without talking about food, which is one of my favorite topics. So how do you describe yourself as a foodie? Do you like to cook, or you just like to eat?
I like to eat.
Okay.
Shwin is the cook of the family,
Yeah.
and, for us, we're always looking for, all kinds of food in Chicago. The funny thing is we actually wonder if we should have a Wanderlust Eyecare food recommendation list,
Yeah.
because it's always hard to find good restaurants, and, the restaurant industry is really, really tough, and so
Yeah.
some of these restaurants, don't last for very long, so we gotta support them. So any
Right.
good food, we are so open to going.
I love that. Yeah, to
Mhm.
be continued. So everybody go check them out on Instagram, Wanderlust, and get ready for the food list to drop, the restaurant list to drop.
Yeah.
Let's see. So um, let's change gears a little bit. What advice do you have for people that want to protect their vision through all stages of their life?
Yeah, so one is just getting an eye exam every year. I think we devalue like the eye exam a lot because when people don't have symptoms, you don't go, and I think that what we do a lot is we try to tell people there's so much more things going on in the back of the eye. We get to see blood vessels, we see the optic nerve. These are all connected to the rest of our body that I can diagnose high blood pressure and high cholesterol just from your eyes,
Wow.
right? That's why, when you see your primary care doctor and you're diagnosed with diabetes, they always recommend a yearly diabetic eye exam, right? Because you can get bleeding and swelling in the back of the eye.
Mm-hmm.
Also, when it comes to the connection to the brain, things like traumatic brain injury, concussion, it affects your focusing ability. And so, there's so many things that can impact your vision that a simple eye exam is really step one. Okay. Number two, sunglasses. The whole thing with blue light. I tell people the most blue light you're going to get is from the sun. And so, something as simple as a pair of sunglasses when you go outside, you should wear that. Think of it like sunscreen for your eyes. Um, right? And then lastly, retinal health is really determined by bodily health, right? So as long as we're doing all the right things, which is, sleep well, drink in moderation, red wine. Red wine is good.
All
Not
right.
too much, but red wine. But eating, a well balanced diet, antioxidants, multivitamins, this is all basic stuff that we can do. And we just don't talk about it. We only go to these eye exams just when something is wrong. So being a little bit more preventative, proactive, that's going to be in your best interest. So.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. Um, okay, so what's next on your travel bucket list? Like, where would you love to go? I'll go first, and then I'll pass it to you. So, my
Yeah.
bucket list travel destination is the Okavango Delta in Botswana.
Whoa.
Okay, no trip planned yet. Over to you.
Okay. So bucket list for me, oh my God, I have so many. So Egypt is definitely on my list, along with Morocco. I want to go back again and get a chance to see more of the country. But the next travel, I'm actually leaving this Friday. I'm going to Puglia, Italy.
Wow,
Yeah, one of our friends is hosting a luxury yoga retreat, which sounds so good right now.
that sounds so good. Well, have a wonderful time. I know you will. And
Yeah.
we always close with Dr. Faye. What
Mhm.
brings you hope?
What brings me hope? Um, Truly, just the future. I think a lot of people are thinking very negatively lately, and I think people don't realize that we have truly so much choice in making our lives better and just being better. And so, there's always time to make things better and, do things more for yourself. And so, I'm excited about impacting more people. I'm excited about more travel. I'm excited about educating. It's just, there's just, I'm really just hopeful for what's to come. But, it only will change if we, make those changes now. So, yeah.
I'm with you, and I love how you expressed what you're hopeful about, and understanding that we can make change, that we can make impact, is the gateway to doing so. So I really love how you led that with choice. Thank you so much for being on this episode, and it's been so fun to chat with you. You have such a contagious enthusiasm for life and for healthcare, for helping people, and it shows up in everything you do. You are such an agent of impact and a force multiplier for good. So it has been my absolute honor to have you on, Dr. Faye Gamboa of Wanderlust Eyecare in Northfield, Illinois. And then I hope to continue the conversation and hear how things went on the yoga retreat in Italy.